Everyone loves talking about their wins. But what about all the dumb stuff we wish we could take back? Today, Miles is getting real about the worst business decisions that he's made, including losing tens of thousands on manufacturing, getting burned by a marketing agency, and wasting a year on a partnership that never paid off. This one's all about what not to do, so you don't have to learn these lessons the hard way.
Into the rhythm of my intuition, anything I want, I speak into existence. That's how I'm.
Okay, here we are, episode 17 of Finding Rhythm. Thank you for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, do all those things. The road to 100 subscribers. Let's go.
It starts right now. Miles, we've talked about some of your wins, but today we're diving into the opposite. Why do you think it's important to talk about mistakes publicly?
Just to be real, I think you can kind of get caught in the trap of just talking about your wins and how good things are going, and that's not the reality of the situation. I think we probably touched on it before. Failures is going to be a common part of building a business and of life too. It's not all sunshine and rainbows, so you're going to go through some hard things. But you learn the most from going through the hard and difficult times. So they are super effective. So I think it's needed to share some of those stories. Honestly, I have had many losses and many obstacles to overcome, and I will continue to have them. I really don't dwell on them that much or think about them that too much. For this episode, we'll dive into them.
Do you remember the first time that you made a real business mistake?
I would say probably the first real business mistake, I didn't even know I was making a business mistake. I was so new to it, and everything was so new. So I didn't even know I was going one foot in front of the other. So in retrospect, like looking back, I could identify the mistakes, but it also led me to the path of really doubling down and wanting to get into business and creating a business for myself. So, yeah.
Let's start with the big ball. What happened to the first time you tried to manufacture it?
Yeah, I would say the big ball is where I truly felt the mistakes, and they were major ones, and they had much bigger implications. So Summer Skates had been growing, and we've been building that up, and it was doing really, really well. And I had sold a large part of my equity for 6 figures, and I had cash, and I was thinking about the next business and doing the big ball. And I was really loose with the money that I had, the cash that I had. And I was really easy to make decisions, which ended up hurting me in the end. So first, I moved too quickly. Had the idea, found a manufacturer, and immediately, without really diving into them, I paid, I should look up the exact amount. It was probably $12,000 US dollars to create the mold that would be needed to create an oversized golf ball. And I just sent that out real quick, right? So call it 15 grand, done. And started working with this manufacturer. I had no contract set up. I had no agreements set up. It was just me talking to a Chinese supplier through email. Just went to the bank, wired them this money. I found them off Alibaba, but then I took everything off platform. And they made samples over a couple of months. Great. The samples got created, got approved. And then I bought 5,000 balls from them. Wired them. It was like $10,000 US again, to create the first 5,000 big balls. Again, no agreement set up, no documentation of this. Everything was off platform. And essentially, they took the money and ran, really. They dragged their feet, wouldn't send me any of the 5,000. They eventually sent me 800 balls, and they were all warped and cracked and horrible, nothing like the samples I approved. So I had 800 crappy big balls, and 8 out of the 5,000 that I was owed. And then I went into a dispute with them back and forth for probably 8 months. 8 months. And essentially they disappeared on me, and I just took the loss. I really just took the loss and just accepted that I was going to lose that money on that manufacturer. And then I had found a new one and started the process with him. So that was probably the very first, like, really, really big one, and it freaking killed me. But then I was like so convinced about the product and what the business could be that I was just okay to eat that L and move on and work with another manufacturer. So.
And you mentioned you didn't have any contracts in place. What did that cost you in the end?
Well, it really cost me like 30 grand, probably 30 grand in total, right? And 2 years of my time with then getting nothing in return of it, right? And I didn't have the molds that I had paid for and created. I didn't have the product that I paid for. And then I had to start from zero again if I wanted to manufacture that product. And with no contracts or agreements, I didn't have anything to kind of stand on of if you don't deliver on this. Alibaba now, they have a payment platform built within it where you can like make payment through that, and they hold it until it's approved of what it does. And that's a safety net for that. But like I said, I just moved everything off platform, and I just went to my bank and wired directly to the factory. And so it ended up costing me way too much.
Looking back on it, what do you think you could have done differently?
I mean, obviously I could have done lots of things differently, but you don't know what you don't know, right? Like I had bought the first 3,000 summer skates through a supplier off Alibaba, did all this thing. Everything went perfect, right? And they were a great manufacturer, and, you know, they did what they said they were going to do. So why would it be any different? It's only after the experience that I realized these things.
You also ran a Kickstarter campaign. Was that for the big ball?
Yeah, this is also for the big ball.
And how did that turn into a problem?
So if you could picture myself in this same mindset too, where I'm just excited to really get this business started, launched, and out in the world, because I believe that we're going to start selling tons of units and make all this money. So I was willing to, you know, instead of go put a down payment on a house, put a down payment on this new business, Big Balls, because I believe that investment was going to grow quickly, right? So at that same time that was happening with the manufacturer, right at that sample time when I was getting the approved samples, I was going to do a Kickstarter to crowdfund the first order of the Big Balls. And I had a goal for $20,000. Yes. And with Kickstarter, you have to reach your goal to get the money. If your goal is $20,000 and you raise $10,000, everyone gets refunded. You don't get the $10,000. That's how the platform works. So I set the goal of $20,000, and I was connected with an agency out of the US specifically created for Kickstarter campaigns. That's what this agency was focused on. And I had a phone call with them, told them about the idea. I'm like, my goal is $20,000. And they're like, they blew my head up so quick. And they were like, oh, this is such a great idea and product and market, and it's unique. And there's no reason for you not to raise $100,000 in pre-orders, right? You still set your goal of 20, but we know for sure that we can get this to 6 figures. We have connection to all these golf blogs and influencers. We run paid ads for you. we can drive this, and we'll book this $100,000. I'll never forget. When I was having this conversation, I was like, oh, this is awesome. Like, my true second business is going to be like lightning in a bottle. We're going to do this and have this second Kickstarter. I'll have this $100,000 Kickstarter. Okay, so what is the package for them to deliver this $100,000? It was 15 grand for them to do their services. This was like their top package for this. And, simple math, 15 grand to you, 100 grand comes in, away we go, pay for the first order, and business launches. And, I was excited to get going with them and sign that contract and sent them the money. Here we go. And then the Kickstarter began, and they didn't do shit. They didn't do shit.
Wow. Just wow. So with the Big Ball, how did you find another manufacturer after all this as well?
Yeah, so actually, let me double click on the Kickstarter of them not doing shit. It launches and they go, and we're getting about halfway through. I had to like scrap and crawl and like beg and borrow money just to get to that $20,000 threshold. I think like the true like actual orders was like maybe around 10, 12,000. And my dad lent me some money, and shout out Jade Barrett. She's like, here, you could do this and we can get it over to the hump of it. I think we were having like a kind of party at the same time when it was coming to an end just to get that amount. And there was no accountability on the agency side of it for not delivering, right? They, out of, call it $12,000 of orders, I bet you that they drove $1,500 worth. The rest was like just an absolute dogfight to do it. And then to go on to the new Big Ball manufacturer. So did that, had the Kickstarter, then had that manufacturing problem. And then I had met or got connected with someone like a broker in the US who had like a relationship getting stuff made, and I could talk to him like during regular business hours and told him about my problem, and he was like, oh yeah, like you shouldn't be doing business like that. And so I started work with him, went through the process again, got molds made. It was much cheaper. And started getting those made. And even with him, like we got 5,000 made. Some of them were defective, got a credit on the next order, and started to roll with him. So that was the next one. But then the pandemic happened, and he also went out of business and disappeared. And I had to start over again.
Damn. So finding the third manufacturer, how did you do that one?
Third manufacturer, I think I had some of my original of the first 5,000. I was selling those, and I had got connected with a guy in the US who was also selling golf training aids. I told him like, yeah, but I don't like, literally this guy had disappeared. I couldn't get a hold of him like the second one. So I didn't know what I was doing next. And he's like, well, I got a guy that makes my stuff. Let's see if he can take on this project. And his name is Brian Walt, and he has been the third one, and he's been the core guy ever since. And we just placed our second large order with Brian and with that manufacturer. So we're rolling now with the Big Ball.
That's great. Now, we're going to move on to one more story. Story number 3, the consulting partner who vanished. You spent almost a year working with someone who on a consulting deal, and then never paid off. What happened? What's the story?
Yeah, these are painful to go back and think about. This was coming out of the pandemic, and I was doing some consulting for a local company. And first, it just started as just like a straight like consulting gig. I was doing some digital stuff, some social media things, but I got into the business and got to know him more and more. And got to see kind of the business from above and the opportunity that was there. So I started to do more work to kind of prove a certain type of business model out. And I was like, okay, I will get paid like nothing, create all this revenue to prove out the model, and then pitch like a partnership with this company to then like do this for real. And this was going to be kind of my next big project that I was going to work on. And I spent the whole year doing this and building it up. And, you know, I got like stringed along the whole way and got told what I wanted to hear at the time, and got to pitch out the partnership, had agreement to it, which was base pay plus like performance on me growing this revenue stream within the business, opportunity to earn equity in the company. And it was at a time where I was really hurting like financially, because this is off the back of like doing all those big ball mistakes. I wasn't doing summer skates anymore. And it took me a lot to even pitch this partnership, because I was convinced that I was just going to start stuff from scratch. But I knew, well, I thought it was the right move at that time. And I remember I went and I pitched the partnership in September and went and bought a nice, beautiful engagement ring for Elisa, and was going to and proposed in that November, but didn't get paid in September, didn't get paid in October, didn't get paid in November, didn't get paid in December, and then vanished in January. After I had spent January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, working to build out this partnership and build out what my kind of core offer was going to be for it. And then it just went it went crashing down, and I was absolutely devastated. So when I thought I was going to get ahead just a little bit there, or even like out of this kind of hole that I had felt, I went even deeper into it, which then led me to January 2022. And that's when the real mission, that's when all this really started. Because I was like, I ain't dead yet.
When and how did you realize that this person was just stringing you along?
You know, looking back, I could read the signs, but I was so blind to it because I think I wanted it too badly. So looking back, I can see it, but it was towards the end of it. Well, it was at the very end when I wasn't getting paid, that I was getting stringed along. But most of that year, but it's my own fault. I was like, I wanted to believe something that wasn't true because I was desperate.
How do you protect yourself from relationships like that now?
Yeah, you know, it's tough because you want to take risks, right? You want to take risks and you want to have trust in people, right? So you don't want to lose that part of it, but maybe when you have the scars a bit, your spidey senses will start to tingle if maybe the vibe isn't right. But it's still something that I'm still learning. You know, at 33 now, I have seen it a few times, and you know, the signs are there if you're willing to pay attention and look. Try not to make decisions on when you're desperate, which is easier said than done too, because, you know, a lot of times you don't have the leverage and you need like certain partnerships and stuff like that. But also tough because I never want to encourage anyone to not trust people and not to take calculated risks. But you are going to get burned.
What are some red flags that you look out for now in deals, agencies, and some partnerships you get into?
Yeah, with people, how they treat others or talk about others, they'll probably do the same about you. I think that's a key one. So that's for people. I would say on the agency side of it, depending on what it is that you're trying to do, tie in performance with fee, right? Depending on what the agency is, right? Like that was a strict, very specific Kickstarter agency, performance driven with markers along the way, with promises of like, I'm going to achieve this. So maybe it should have been like small base and then percentage of money earned out. So I would say that, and just do your diligence and looking into it. Try not to rush into any decisions, and based off of the seriousness of the consequences of those decisions, take your time.
You've lost a lot of money, time, and energy from these mistakes. What's the number one overall lesson from all of them?
Shit is going to happen, and shit people are going to come into your life. Try to protect your downside as much as you can. Don't risk everything, right? It's okay to have big risk, but be okay if it goes to zero.
What advice would you give to someone who's about to make one of these mistakes right now?
Do it. You'll learn from it.
If you could go back and undo just one of these mistakes, which would it be and why?
You know what? I really wouldn't change any of them, because I am a believer that like it shapes your path, right? Every decision that you make is going to have influence, right? This is like actions today create your future reality, right? And action is just decisions that you are making, right? Do this, do that. And you never, like, if you think of all the decisions that you make, you never are going to know what the other route would be. So I don't like looking back and being like, oh, I wish this never happened and this never happened. Obviously, at the time when you're in like high amounts of pain, you're like, why is this happening? But you always get through it, and you always learn from it, and you always become better from it. And it leads you to other things, right? Like all of those, bad partners have led me to amazing partners, and, bad manufacturers have led me to great manufacturers, and, bad contracts have led me to, or bad agencies have led me to great agencies. So I wouldn't change any of them.
You did it, so the viewers don't have to. What's the dumbest business decision that you've made, or one that you've almost made but avoided? Drop it in the comments so we can all learn from each other, and we'll see you all in episode 18.